Heroes of the City of Man. Pages 200 to 204. Apocalypse, books 20 to 24. The suitors clearly have no clue who this beggar is, and in their ignorance they are less than dogs, for even Argos, Odysseus's dog, recognizes his master upon his return. But does Penelope? It is clear that she values his conversation and advice, since most of Book 19 describes their nighttime conversation. Penelope, finally finding a sympathetic man who has had some contact with her husband, pours out her heart. She tells Odysseus about the trick of the shroud by which she kept the suitors at bay for 3 years. Odysseus's affection and pity is genuine. Odysseus's heart went out to his grief-stricken wife, and he renews her hope by assuring her that Odysseus is still alive, laden with treasure. Echoing Theoclymenus' prophecy, he swears that Odysseus will return to Ithaca within the month. Does Penelope suspect who he is? The text does not say for sure, but some commentators believe she does. As we noted above, Helen, who knew Odysseus much less well than Penelope, recognized him when he infiltrated Troy disguised as a beggar. In a strange way, the lies that Odysseus tells are themselves marks of his identity. Penelope, who is herself a master of craft and cunning, might well have recognized her man of twists and turns in the elaborate stories he tells. More importantly, Penelope's actions in the subsequent books perhaps suggest that she recognizes him. At the beginning of Book 21, she sets up a contest to determine which suitor she will marry. He must be able to string Odysseus's bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axes. As in many folk tales, the bride sets up a contest to decide who her husband will be. The contest is supposed to lead to a wedding day. Odysseus is there to make sure it is a blood wedding, crushing the vipers who have tried to seduce his bride. This is a change from her earlier promise to accept the wealthiest suitor and changes the terms of their courting. As Bernard Knox observes, Penelope might be credited with great foresight here. She suspects that none of the suitors who have spent their youth in games and feasting will be able to meet her challenge, and they will slink away in shame. She is determined she will not accept a weaker man. What she wants is another Odysseus, and that is what she gets, an Odysseus who has been to hell and back. Yet hers is a puzzling decision. Why does she go ahead with this now? Odysseus, in disguise, has assured her that her husband is alive and coming home soon, and the prophet Theoclymenus has said that Odysseus is already in Ithaca. Perhaps she recognizes her husband, and without speaking a word about it, they are colluding in the destruction of the suitors. Interesting as this possibility is, Homer does not explicitly indicate that Penelope recognizes Odysseus, and much of the evidence is against it. During the nighttime conversation between Penelope and the beggar, for example, Homer teases us with the conventions of the recognition scene. Penelope expresses her wish that Odysseus would return. Whatever form and feature I had, what praise I'd won, the deathless gods destroyed the day the Achaeans sailed away to Troy, my husband, in their ships. Odysseus, if he could return to tend my life, the renown I had would only grow in glory. The beggar assures her that Odysseus is on his way and provides convincing evidence that he has seen Odysseus. In a conventional story, this kind of exchange normally leads to a great unveiling. "And here I am, Odysseus, returned to save you," said in an artificially deep voice. True to form, however, Odysseus further delays speaking his name, and there is no glimmer of recognition in Penelope. Instead, the scene ends with our expectations of a reunion unfulfilled. The delay is dramatically brilliant, bringing us to the peak of excitement and then easing off. But Homer's artistry takes a surprising further step. Odysseus goes from his conversation with Penelope to take a bath, and during the bath he is recognized. Not by Penelope, but by Euryclea. Why then does Penelope decide to choose one of the suitors? To understand this, we have to recognize that Homer's depiction of Penelope's feelings about her situation is more subtle and realistic than it might appear to be. No doubt she is longing for her husband's return. She prays for death partly because it would be better to be with Odysseus under the earth than to continue above ground without him. Yet the dream that she tells Odysseus betrays ambiance toward the suitors. I keep 20 geese in the house. From the water trough they come and peck their wheat. I love to watch them all, but down from a mountain swooped this great hook-beaked eagle. Yes, and he snapped their necks and killed them, one and all, and they lay in heaps throughout the hall, while he, back to the clear blue sky, soared at once. But I wept and wailed, only a dream, of course. But down he swooped again and settled on a jutting rafter, called out in a human voice that dried my tears. Courage, daughter of famous Icarius! This is no dream, but a happy waking vision, real as day, that will come true for you. The geese were your suitors. I was once the eagle, but now I am your husband, back again at last, about to launch a terrible fate against them all. Odysseus is right in his interpretation. Destruction is clear for each and every suitor. Not a soul escapes his death and doom. What is intriguing is Penelope's reaction to the fate of her geese. She loves to watch them all, and when the eagle slaughters them, she weeps uncontrollably. In Odysseus's absence, at least the suitors provide a pleasing diversion. They may be eating Telemachus out of his inheritance, but Penelope apparently enjoys watching them eat. Just as Odysseus's suffering in exile is eased by his pleasure with Calypso and Circe, so Penelope's journey is not without its joys. Another important passage occurs after Penelope and Odysseus have been reunited. She dissolved in tears, rushed to Odysseus, flung her arms around his neck and kissed his head and cried out, "Odysseus, don't flare up at me now! Not you, always the most understanding man alive! The gods, it was the gods who sent us sorrow. They grudged us both a life in each other's arms. From the heady zest of youth to the stoop of old age, remember Helen of Argos, Zeus' daughter? Would she have sported so in a stranger's bed if she had dreamed that Achaea's sons were doomed to fight and die to bring her home again? Some god spurred her to do her shameless work." Penelope explicitly compares her situation to Helen's. Just as the gods spurred Helen to her adultery with Paris, so the gods have kept Penelope and Odysseus separate these many years. Implicitly, Penelope is suggesting that she has come close to becoming another Helen. Separated from her husband by the will of the gods, she nearly chose to bed down with another unscrupulous guest, another Paris. Her decision to use a contest of the axes to choose a husband was sincere. She had given up hope that Odysseus would return, and she was ready to settle for another. The final books of the Odyssey do not tell the story of two clever people working together to foil their common enemies, but the fairy tale story of the heroic lover coming in the nick of time to rescue the bride from the dragon. The suitors, not used to war or weaponry, are unable to string the bow, much less shoot the arrow through the axes. Odysseus, still disguised as a beggar, asks for a chance. Antinous dismisses him. "The wine has overpowered you, heady wine." His warning that there will be no end of trouble if you should string that bow is truer than he can know, as is his story about the centaur who, drunk with wine, wreaked havoc in the house of Pirithous. Trouble there will be, and Antinous will be the first to feel it. Penelope and Telemachus overrule Antinous to let Odysseus have a try. Penelope even promises him a shirt and cloak in handsome clothes if he can string the bow. Should he prove himself another Odysseus, the beggar will change his rags for garments of glory. Telemachus dismisses Penelope from the room while Odysseus examines the bow. Then, like an expert singer skilled at lyre and song, who strains a string to a new peg with ease, making the plaint sheep gut fast at either end, so with his virtuoso ease Odysseus strung his mighty bow. Quickly his right hand plucked the string to test its pitch, and under his touch it sang out clear and sharp as a swallow's cry.